So definitely have a couple people from last week here, and I know there's a lot of new people. Just quickly, my name is Keith. I am the lead meditation teacher at Meditation Breaks. It's a company that does in-person and online guided meditations on a bunch of different topics for all levels. We go to offices and schools and home study. So if any of this resonates with you and you want to pursue something more like more one-on-one, my link to the website is in the description. And I love working one-on-one or in groups with people too. So today's itinerary is going to kind of go a lot like last time, where we're going to talk for a bit, and then we're going to do a brief meditation, and then we're going to talk for a little bit more, and then we'll do another quick meditation. They'll be short, so don't stress out about sitting there for an hour. It's going to be 5-10 minutes, something like that. And I encourage you to ask questions, throughout the entire thing. Maybe not when we're meditating, because my eyes will be closed, so I can't see them. And your eyes should be closed too. But any other time, feel free to ask questions. It's kind of what I really like this format, because I think you can gain a lot by asking questions like as they come up, as opposed to a lot of meditation videos or apps. Like you're kind of just there and you're like, like, am I doing this right? Or like whatever, like all those kind of questions that come up. So take advantage of that, and I'll do my best to answer any questions you have. So today, after last week, I got an email from somebody who attended, and they were asking if I could clarify what mindfulness is. And I thought this was actually a really good topic for this week, because mindfulness is kind of like really buzzwordy. Like, at least for me, I don't know if you guys hear it as much as I do, but like in my industry or whatever, it's very kind of buzzword. It's everywhere, right? Like there's mindfulness in schools, there's mindful eating, mindful walking, you should be more mindful, people say. It's like, what does this even mean? So hopefully today will clarify a little bit about like what mindfulness is, how it is paired with meditation, because they are very closely related. And hopefully you'll walk away with a better understanding about that, because it is a really important tool. And I think I'll start by saying mindfulness it's really kindness. I know it sounds kind of weird, but it's like active kindness, right? Like, so basically the idea is that you're going to be intentionally aware of your own thoughts, and like, how your mind works moment to moment. And by doing that, you'll be able to like be more kind to yourself and to others. Like you'll be able to, snuff out anger, before it snowballs and becomes, kind of hard to manage, right? So that's the overall goal of mindfulness. It is like a level of awareness of your own thoughts, but the goal is to use that for kindness, which I think is really kind of cool. It's really kind of beautiful, right? So one of the words that's associated with the word mindfulness a lot is like awareness. And it is a really good word for it, because we need to be aware of what our mind is doing. Otherwise, you can't really take any action, right? I'm going to save like a whole awareness thing for a different talk, because it's pretty in depth. But like, whenever we're trying to resolve a problem or like deal with anger or jealousy or any sort of like negative mind state, the method that we do it is the same. And it's like a 3-step. Recognize, reduce, and then remedy. And I'm not going to go into too much depth here. Like that's a whole other thing. But the recognize part is part of mindfulness. And it's pretty self-explanatory, right? Like if you can't recognize that you're getting angry, then you can't do anything to stop being angry. So recognition is the first step in dealing with any of these problems, whatever it is, loneliness, like any negative problem. You have to recognize that it's happening. And sadly, a lot of us won't ever recognize that these things are happening. And sometimes we do, but it's too late, right? Anger is a really good example that it snowballs. And a good analogy is like it's a forest fire, right? Like when it starts out really small, but if you don't take care of it, then it can become really problematic. And like, so that I think that's like a really important concept of mindfulness, is to just be aware, right? Be aware of how your mind is moment to moment. And that kind of takes an active participation, right? Like it's not like reactive, even though it might start there. So we're going to initially like try to we might have to like force ourselves to think about these types of things, but eventually we'll want to kind of have this thing monitoring, like our mindfulness is sort of like a spy monitoring our mind. That way we're able to take care of any negative thoughts that come up, right? So that's one big aspect of mindfulness. And another one is being present. That's like, talk about buzzwords, man. That's like super, super buzzword. Like if like we hear it everywhere, right? Like you should be more present, this and that. And it's really hard to understand like what that actually means. And it's kind of interesting to think about, like, well, why aren't we like, where are we if we're not present? And like, why do we have to try to be present? Why aren't we naturally present? Like that's how it feels, like we're not naturally present. So this is a huge topic too, and I'm going to talk about this in the second half a lot, because it's really interesting. At least I think it is. Maybe you won't, but it's really interesting to like analyze what being present is, and how it can be helpful, and like where is our mind if it's not naturally present. It's a really kind of cool thing to investigate. But overall, our mind is very distracted. That's kind of why it's not present. We're constantly bombarded by thoughts all day, every hour, every minute. We don't even really realize it. We'll be working on something at work, and if anyone's just catching up, I know a lot of people, kind of trickle in late. I'm just going over very early what mindfulness is, because that was a question somebody asked. And just to summarize, mindfulness is intentionally watching our own minds, so that way we can be kind to ourselves and others. And that's basically what you missed. So our mind is normally really distracted. And that contributes to us being anxious, upset, jealous, because it's like out of control. And I think a good example that we've all probably experienced is we'll be at work, and we're working on something, and then somebody says something that we don't like or upsets us, or we even like we think about something somebody said a while ago that upsets us, and our mind like starts to go off on these tangents, like oh man, like how could they say that to me? Like, maybe they're our boss, right? Like, oh, maybe they don't really like the work I do. Am I not in the right profession? Am I not good enough? Like, these are all these thoughts that pop into our head, and they distract us. They take us away from what we're trying to focus on. And it feels like we have no control over this, which is really scary at times. And it makes us exhausted, right? Like, that's why we come home from work feeling exhausted mentally. Like, we have physical exhaustion, but mental exhaustion too. It's because our thoughts are bombarding us. So we need to work on getting them under control a little bit, which meditation really helps with a lot. That's kind of one of its main purposes. So I used this analogy last time, and since there's a lot of new people, I'm going to use it again. So sorry if you're hearing it for a second time, but honestly, like, you're probably going to hear me repeat a lot of stuff, and maybe that's annoying for some, but it's really important because meditation is all about becoming familiar with like these concepts, and the only way that you're going to become familiar with them is if you hear them over and over and over and over and over again, and then you practice them over and over and over and over and over again. It's the same as anything, same as learning anything. So the analogy for our busy mind, right, is like, imagine you're at a lake. You're like on a hike, and you get to this beautiful lake, very serene. It's still, and you're looking at the gorgeous reflection in this lake. And then all of a sudden it starts to rain, right? And not crazy heavy rain, right? But a good amount that normally, if I wasn't asking you to stand there in it, you would probably evacuate. And so if I were to ask you, describe to me the reflection in the lake, now that it's raining, you might say, well, I see like kind of like the grass, and then there's like this hill over here, but it's a little murky. I'm not really sure. The raindrops are kind of obscuring it a little bit. And then it starts to downpour, right? Like crazy amount of rain. And then I'm like, okay, describe to me the reflection now. And you're like, I can't. The rain is too much. It's obscuring the reflection too much. In this analogy, our mind is the lake, right? It's like normally very still. Normally, it's very peaceful. Our thoughts, the bombardment of thoughts that are happening out of our control, as it seems, are these raindrops, right? And the more we let these raindrops accumulate, the harder it is for us to see clearly, the harder it is for us to think clearly, the harder it is for us to be happy. Like, all these things are contributed by this ongoing distraction of all of our thoughts. And anger, I feel like anger is a really good one to use to like think about this, right? Like, if somebody says something that we don't like, a couple little raindrops here, we might start to think about it a little bit. But if we let it fester, like the raindrops really keep coming, and then like it's all we can think about, and we're just consumed by, our own anger, and we're not ourselves, right? We do things that we wouldn't normally do. We say things that we wouldn't normally say, right? And then hopefully we apologize for them later, but we're not ourselves, right? We perceive things differently the more distractions we have in our mind. So I really love that analogy, because I think it's a really good visualization. And you can think about that throughout the day. Like if you're getting angry, like, okay, these are like raindrops, right? These are raindrops. But my mind is normally very still. So in terms of meditation and mindfulness, like mindfulness is the tool in which we're going to like watch our mind. Meditation is literally all meditation means is practice. Like it's familiarization with anything. So meditation is the way we're going to train our mind to be more mindful. Well, it's kind of like a mouthful, but we're going to train ourselves to be able to watch our own thoughts by meditating. And it's the same thing with any sort of practice. It takes some time. It's interesting because we all are really good at meditating, but we only meditate on very negative things like anger, like single pointed on anger, like, oh, I can't think of anything else, right? We're like almost meditating in a really unproductive way. But to be more mindful, to be kinder, to be more kind to ourselves and to others, more aware of our thoughts, more aware of how our thoughts are contributing to our daily mood, we need to meditate. We need to learn how to meditate. So that's what we're going to do first today. And when we first start meditating, The initial goal is to relax our mind, to clear away those raindrops, right? To go back to that analogy, we need to clear away some of the raindrops, not all. That is for later on, right? So we don't have to clear away all of them, because even if we clear away a little, we're going to be able to see the reflection more clearly. We're going to be able to think more clearly, to be less angry, to be more ourselves, like more our default happy self. So the goal is baby steps. At first we're just going to do a couple raindrops would be fine. So we're going to do this by something called single pointed concentration, which is very cool way of saying focusing on one thing. And we're going to focus on one thing so much so that the other thoughts that are normally kind of bouncing around are going to fade away. And you've all experienced this in some capacity. If you're in the zone, so to speak, like at work, you're working on something, and what happens? The distractions that normally are very agitating, other people talking, a buzzing from a light, I don't know, like I'm pulling from my own experience of being in an office. They're like not there anymore. You're like totally plugged into what you're doing. You don't notice them. And the reason is because our mind can only focus on one thing at a time, really. Like, I know we think that we're like great multitaskers. Multitasking is not even possible. You can't focus on two things at the same time. What you're doing when you're multitasking is you're kind of voluntarily letting your mind bounce from thing to thing, which is very good for doing worldly tasks. But it's not so great for being calm and peaceful. Which you might notice if you're like multitasking all day, you're like kind of get stressed out, So we're going to focus on one thing. And that one thing we're going to focus on is our breath. It's a very common thing to focus on. And there's a reason that it's very common entry point into meditation. It's two reasons, really. It's like a neutral thing to focus on. It's doesn't make us like super excited or super bummed out or anything like that. It's like just kind of there. It's baseline. And that's good. We want like kind of a like, what is it, an experiment, a control, right? So we're going to like focus on our breath, and it's not going to bounce us like this. And the other reason is that it's always with us, right? Our breath is always available. It's always there, which is really important. It's a really important concept in meditation. The idea that we don't need special circumstances to meditate, right? We don't need dead silence. We don't need dark, no lights. We don't need any of that. We don't need like a Zen room environment. We don't need to be in a cave. Like I'm in my apartment. My sweet gaming chair that is actually not as comfortable as it was marketed as. But we don't need anything special. And that's what's cool about meditation. And that's what's great about using your breath to start, is because it's always with us. And if we can get good at using our breath to relax, well, then we have a method of relaxing independent of our external circumstances, which is really good. It's a big takeaway. Whatever your situation right now, you have everything you need to meditate, and you have everything you need to have a more peaceful mind, a happier mind, independent of what's happening out there, external, which is kind of, it's like something we know, happiness comes from within. We hear that. And we're like, yeah, it makes sense. But we don't know it. We know it, but we don't know it. So we have to train, we kind of got to train and see it for ourselves that we're able to do it. And that's what breathing meditation is going to do for us. It's going to show us that we can relax, even just a little bit. But if we can do it a little bit, then we can do it a little more, and a little more, and a little more, until it's a lot. Okay, so I'm going to guide us through a breathing meditation. It's very simple. You just listen to what I say and do it. And, at some point your mind might drift off and not be focusing on this. And then when you notice that, just be like, okay, and then bring it back to focusing on what I'm talking about, what I'm instructing. And that's it. That's meditation. The act of focusing and then bringing our attention back when we're no longer focused is meditation. And we'll notice over time, and when we do this, we feel like chilled out, right? Because like all those other thoughts, there's no room for them anymore, which is really like what's better than that, right? Being able to like calm down at will, without any external factors involved. All right, so this is the part where we're going to meditate, and it involves closing your eyes. So maybe that's a little strange for you, especially when you're like looking at a video here. It's like, yeah, I get it, but don't worry about it because we're all doing it. So we're all in it together. All right. So wherever you're at, you don't have to get in any special place. Wherever you are is perfect. If you're sitting on the floor, cool. If you're in a chair, cool. If you're laying down, cool. If you're sitting in your car, I don't know where you are, but wherever you are, that's fine. So just sit comfortably in a relaxed position, and you can like let your hands rest comfortably. Just try not to be too tense, right? But we're not trying to fall asleep, so try not to get too sleepy. We're trying to work our mind a little bit. So just sit comfortably and close your eyes. And we can start by checking in with ourselves. We can check in with ourselves, see how we're feeling. Take note of how your legs feel sitting in your chair or on the ground, how your feet feel if they're on the floor. Are your shoulders tense? Just take inventory of how you're feeling. This is really important, not only physically, but mentally. How are you feeling right now, mentally? Are you anxious, embarrassed, nervous, excited? Part of mindfulness is being able to check in with yourself and non-judgmentally analyze how you're feeling. And after having checked in with ourselves, we can turn our attention to our breathing. We can focus on our breath, just breathing very naturally in and out. And as we're focusing on our breathing, we can place extra special attention on the exhale, breathing out. Every time you breathe out, imagine that you're breathing out all of the stresses of today. All of the things that happened earlier, thoughts about what you're going to do later. Actually visualize yourself breathing them out with each exhalation. Sometimes it can be helpful to visualize this as breathing out dark smoke. Every time you breathe out, imagine you're breathing out dark smoke, which represents all of the stress of today, all of those bombarding thoughts. Just breathe them out. At some point, if you find your attention is no longer on breathing out these negative mind states, if your attention is no longer focusing on breathing out the dark smoke, just gently guide it back. Guide it back to focusing on breathing out the dark smoke with each exhalation. Keep bringing your attention back, focusing on breathing out dark smoke. And now we can add in extra focus on our in-breath. Every time you breathe in, imagine that you're breathing in warmth, happiness, joy, sunlight, good feelings. Sometimes it can be helpful to imagine this as a clear light or a white light. Breathing in the white light with each inhalation and breathing out dark smoke with each exhalation. Breathing in the white light, breathing out the dark smoke. Enjoying breathing in and enjoying breathing out. If your mind drifts from this, just gently bring it back. Gently bring it back to focusing on breathing in and breathing out. You're meditating. How wonderful. You're training your mind to relax. Okay, and when you're ready, you can relax and open up your eyes. How did that go? It was short, like 5 minutes, I think, or something like that. It's hard to tell sometimes. That is called a black and white meditation. You might have, it's kind of common. You might have done that before. Oh, fair. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thanks. There are a lot of different types of breathing meditation. There's black and white meditation. There's like just straight up focusing on your breath. There's like you can count your breaths. Over the course of time, I'll go through all of them because each one resonates with different people. Oh, great! See, Rachel's done them before. Yeah. Sometimes they do them in like yoga. That it's pretty common in yoga. I think I've done a black and white meditation in yoga. But there are a lot of different ways you can approach breathing meditation. Oh, good, Ashley. I'm glad that you were able to stay focused. Like, if it was hard, that's okay. It is kind of hard because we're not really used to doing this. Like, when do we ever do this voluntarily, right? Never. In fact, sitting and focusing on our breathing seems like a waste of time to us, right? Like, we're like, I'm not being productive. I'm not doing worldly tasks. We're obsessed with doing worldly tasks. But this is really important because this shows us that we have the ability to relax whenever we need to. We'll get better at it, even if you're struggling. It just takes time. Does it matter if you breathe out through your nose or through your mouth? Traditionally in meditation, you're supposed to breathe out through your nose. The reason is, so that's okay. So traditionally, it's supposed to be through your nose. What I'll say is that whatever is most natural for you is what you should do. Because the goal of this entire exercise is to get you to realize that you don't need to change anything about what you're doing to do this, right? So if like you normally breathe in through your nose and out through your nose, that's like what I do, then that's what you do. If you normally breathe in through your mouth and out through your mouth, I don't know, do that. Like, don't, because what happens if you try to like focus on doing it a way that's not natural, then now you're not thinking about your breath, you're thinking about how you're breathing, which is like a subtle difference. So just do what feels natural would be my advice, at least at this juncture. So I'm glad you found that helpful. So breathing meditation is really important because it gets our mind, it clears away some of those raindrops, right? That it gets our mind in a more clear state. But the full benefit of meditation is far beyond just relaxing, right? Meditation is about investigating things. Meditation is an investigation tool, right? Like take the lake example for, let's go back to that, right? If you were able to clear away those raindrops and then not describe, like, why would you do that and then not look at the beautiful reflection there? Why would you, okay, I put in all that work to clear away the raindrops. I guess I'll just walk away. Yeah. So like part of meditation, a huge part of it, is the investigation portion once you have relaxed your mind. I like to use the analogy that it's sort of like if you don't do the investigation, it's sort of like boiling water and not putting pasta in it to cook, or like something like that, right? Like you've gone there, but now we're going to go the extra distance, right? So that's a really important thing that sometimes you don't get with like breathing meditation apps and stuff like that. They don't like do the investigation portion. So we're going to do some investigation. Oh, Harmony, that's really interesting. Harmony says, I weirdly find wearing a mask during COVID times makes me more aware of my breath. Maybe because of the enclosed space. Yeah, I think so. Right? Like you're kind of feeling your breath, right? And normally when we're breathing, we don't feel it. Like there's no sensation unless we're like up close to something, then we feel it. Right? So that's cool. That's a really good thing to do. Like if you're walking around outside and you're wearing a mask, just like pay attention to your breath for 2 minutes or a minute or 30 seconds. Just be like, how does this feel? Pay attention. Like all that is getting you in the routine of noticing your breath, which is mindfulness. Noticing things is mindfulness, really, for a purpose. But like for now, just notice, just recognize, right? So we're going to do a little investigation. And before we do an investigatory meditation, I want to talk a little bit about being present. This is what we're going to investigate, what it means to be present, because it is a very common phrase that is used today. People are like, you should be more present. I want to be more present. Right? But what does that mean? Right? It can be kind of confusing. to know what it means to be more present. We like have an idea, but it's like, why do we have to try at this? So normally we're very, very distracted, as we were talking about, right? And our thoughts are out of control. Meditation helps us regain control over our thoughts to the point that we can choose where we want to be mentally. We can choose if we want to be present. We're not, right? Normally, we're not present. Hate to break it to you. Pretty much all of your thoughts, if you're honest with yourself, this can be like a fun thing. Like, okay, how much of your thoughts do you think are in the past or future? Like throughout the day, right? Like percentage-wise, what do you think it is? We might think it's less than it is, but if we check, it's like almost all of our thoughts, which is really interesting, right? How often are you thinking about something somebody said or something? Almost all. Like, okay, that's good. That's like a really good awareness of where your thoughts are, right? 99%. That's probably right. 99% is probably the number. Like you're right, we're constantly thinking about things that happened previously, right? Something somebody said to us last week, last month, years ago, or even like just now. That's a really interesting thing about the past. Like what I just said right now is gone. That's technically the past, right? So like things that are happening to us, which seem to be very present, are immediately put in the past, right? And then we are bringing them back and ruminating on them. Sometimes it's good to ruminate on things, right? But like very often let's be honest, we're not doing it very productively. We're like ruminating something that's making us really angry, something that we don't like, that we're jealous about. That's happening all the time. And the same is for the future. Like how often are we thinking about or worrying about getting our work done on time so that way we can get to an event that we have scheduled, or so that we can go home and relax, or we can make our train, or like worrying about a trip that's coming up and if it's going to happen. Now with COVID, it's like, there's a lot of things there's a lot of uncertainty, right, about the future. These are all thoughts of the future. Worries are all thoughts about the future. And if our mind, since our mind cannot be in two places at once, as we talked about, right? Like if our mind is in the past or in the future, where is it not? The present, right? It's the only options, right? So we are very rarely actually living in the present moment. We are very rarely actually thinking moment to moment. Thinking moment to moment is mindfulness, right? Like being aware of what's happening moment to moment is mindfulness, right? And so that's why breathing meditation is really important, is because it starts to train us in focusing on the present moment, our breath in and out, not what we were breathing like before, or if we're doing this right. That's worrying about the future, right? Like if this is going to help or whatnot. But just non-judgmentally focusing on our breath. It's a really good starting point for mindfulness. And interestingly enough, when we are wrapped up in the past or future, we're actually not in reality, right? Like these, we're ruminating on something that upset us, right? Something somebody said. Really, that thing that happened is gone already. Like even if it happened just recently, it's gone. We are voluntarily bringing that painful experience back into the present moment. This is voluntary, right? We're being controlled by our thoughts. We're being controlled by the bombardment of our thoughts of the past. But we don't have to. In reality, that moment is gone. We don't need to bring it back. It's the same about the future. We're worrying about something that hasn't happened yet. Anxiety, which is a huge entry point into meditation. It's how I got into it for anxiety. Anxiety is all about dwelling on the outcome of future events. What if, right? What if it's like this forever? What if I say something stupid, right? These are things in the future. They haven't happened yet. They only exist in your mind. And because they only exist in your mind, we have the power to change them. It's like when I first came across these concepts, I was like, I don't know, that like kind of makes me uneasy, right? That it's like I'm voluntarily kind of bringing these things in, right? Because we want to like blame other things. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this is really good news. This is really, really good news because it means we have a choice. If all of the things that are happening outside were influencing our happiness, right? And it wasn't inside. It wasn't our like thinking of the past and our thinking of the future. We would be kind of at the mercy of the things that are going on around us. But because our mind plays such a huge role in our happiness, we have the power to be happy, independent of the external circumstance. So at first it might seem a little weird, but it's actually really empowering once you start to think about it in that way. Ultimately, we don't need to be at the mercy of our thoughts. We have a choice of what we want to think and if we want to be present, right? To do that, we need to practice meditation. We need to be aware of what's going on. We need mindfulness. We need those two things combined, right? So now I want to do another meditation. It's going to be short, a little longer than last time, I think. But we're going to do a little bit of what's called a contemplation, which is the fancy way of saying we're going to use our mind after we relax it to investigate something. And the thing we're going to investigate lightly is what we just talked about, how most of our thoughts are in the past or in the future. We're going to think about that, right? Because meditation is all about investigating something, coming to some sort of a conclusion, and then familiarizing yourself with that conclusion. That way, it gets ingrained in you, and then you can recall it throughout the day to make use of it. That is a classic staple of mindfulness, is being able to recall these things that we're learning, right? Being aware of these things that we've learned. That way we can put them to use throughout the day when we're not meditating, right? Because the majority of our time, we're not meditating. We're living, we're walking around, we're working and things like that. But we can put these things to use if we're proactive about monitoring our own mind. Okay, so we'll do this, and then we can talk more. I'll try to catch up on questions. I think I covered most, but if you guys have any more, we can go through that. And I think that's probably a good spot to end. I don't want to overload on one day. All right, so let's go back to sitting in our comfortable position. Alert, but not uncomfortable, not rigid. And gently close your eyes. Very quickly check in with yourself. How are you feeling? Overwhelmed? Relaxed? Whatever it is, just note it and move on. And this time I'd like you to bring to mind an image. Imagine that your mind is a vast sky. Beautiful, blue, boundless. Just imagine that your mind is sky-like, like a beautiful sky. In our sky-like mind that we're imagining, there will inevitably be some clouds, some thoughts. Normally, when thoughts pop up, we focus on them. We focus on the clouds. But we don't have to focus on the clouds. We can make a choice. We can choose to focus on the sky. We can choose to continue to focus on our sky-like mind and let the clouds pass through. Many of these thought clouds are thoughts of the past. Something somebody said. Something we regret. These things are gone. They are over. Yesterday is gone. We don't have to focus on them if we don't want to. We can choose to let those thought clouds of the past melt away. Many of our other thoughts are based in the future, a worry, an event that's coming up, things we're nervous about, things we're anxious about. These thought clouds are of the future. They have not happened yet. They only exist in our mind. And as such, we can choose to let them go. We can choose to let our thoughts of the future melt away. What we're left with our thoughts of the past gone and our thoughts of the future gone, is reality. The here and now, the present moment, this moment, this moment, this moment, this moment, this moment. Take a second to enjoy being here in the present moment. Take a second to congratulate yourself on actively moving aside these thought clouds, to live in the present moment, even if only for a little while. Notice how your breath feels in the present moment. The sensations of breathing in and breathing out. The cool air breathing in, the warm air breathing out. If you get distracted by a thought of the past or future, just guide your attention back to the present moment, to your breathing. to our sky-like mind. If at any point during this you find yourself feeling a bit more relaxed, a bit calmer, lighter, whatever your experience is, when you notice it, go there. Recognize that feeling and just sit with it and enjoy it. This feeling is your naturally peaceful mind. It is the still lake. Meditation does not create happiness. Meditation reveals what has been with you all along, waiting to be tapped into. How amazing that you have the ability to relax, to be peaceful, to be happy, all on your own, just by using your mind. How amazing is that? Sit with that feeling for a little while. Okay, and when you're ready, you can relax and open your eyes. How was that? The recognition. Yeah, I really like the cloud sky thing because it's a really cool visualization and it's really pertinent to what we're talking about. Like we always notice the clouds, right, in the sky. Like we're like, oh, it's cloud. There's clouds. I wish there weren't clouds, you know. But like, there's a beautiful sky there that we can focus on, even when it's completely overcast. Above the clouds is the beautiful sky. It's always there, just like our peaceful mind that we were talking about in the meditation is always there, which is really important to start to realize. Like, it's always there. If we get good at tapping into it, we can always access it. That is the power of meditation. That is why it helps so much, because it's always with us. It's the recognition that all of these thoughts that are popping up, that's not us. Us is very calm and very peaceful and very happy. And we can get there through practice. Let's read some of the questions. Oh, Joan, that's great. Yeah, feeling like the feeling of being like suspended, or like it's exactly what we were talking about with the being in the zone at work, right? Like you lose track of things. Like you lose track of the noises and the normal sensations. Or like sometimes like you're itchy and like then you forget about it, you know? It's amazing. It really is incredible thing to recognize with the mind. Like Like if your knee hurt and you go to sleep, you don't notice your knees hurting when you're asleep because your mind is not focused on your knee at all. Your mind is focused on dreaming or something else, right? Your mind plays a huge role in our worldly experience. And so this meditation is the way to start to get in touch with that and to be able to use it as a tool to help us. Right? Any other questions about breathing meditation, mindfulness in general, anything? My gaming chair. Just a heads up that I'll be doing this hopefully every Wednesday. So if you found this cool or helpful or intriguing or you're not sure, come on back, because like I was saying before, there's a lot of different aspects of meditation, and some ring really powerfully with individuals and others don't, right? And that's why there's a lot of different analogies and there's different types of meditation, and there's all different kinds for all different folk. So I'm going to try to mix it up a little bit each week, even if just slightly, to try to hit those different points. Though I know there's a lot of new people that come each week, so there might be a little bit of a recap to get us to this certain point. Realizing that focusing on your breathing is going to be essential for keeping you focused. It's really the best way to start. Next time you want to know what your homework is, Mike Oliveri, the homework for this week is 2 things. So you're gonna try to sit down and do a breathing meditation for however long you're able. I don't care if it's a minute. I don't care if it's 5 minutes. Don't go beyond 10 minutes. That's too much for starting. See if you can do that 3 times a week. For whatever time of day, for however long, just try that. And then homework number 2 is you're going to do a little mindful exercise. So I want you to pick an activity, one that's like kind of mundane, okay? Like maybe brushing your teeth, walking. Walking is really interesting, right? Like next time you go for a walk, think about how your feet feel as you're walking, how your knees feel. Like totally focus in on your feet, your legs, your arms. Like how does your body feel walking? Because walking is something like our breath that we don't pay attention to normally. We just do it, right? And so if we like purposefully pay attention to how walking makes us feel, we're sort of like being extra aware, extra present with each step, right? Like being in the present. We're focusing on this step, this step, this step, this step. And we might even get a new appreciation for walking, a new appreciation for how amazing our body is, that it can propel us forward at various speeds. Mine is a little bit slow, a little slow walking speed for me. But that's one of the benefits of being mindful, is we start to notice things differently. We start to appreciate things more because we're actually plugged into them. So that would be what I'd say the second homework is. Okay, I have a couple of questions. Farah, I'm glad you had a really good experience. I try to use analogies because I find it's really helpful. Some of this stuff, it can seem a little like esoteric and stuff. So some of the analogies help ground it a little bit. So I'll probably I use a lot of analogies. Some of them are repeats, some of them are not. So hopefully you'll find one that rings true for you. Ken, hard to find the images today. Last time it was easier to project the images. Have you had trouble? Yes. Okay. So this is really important. It's not going to go great each time. There is no great. Like that's a really hard concept to get behind. There's like no good meditation or bad meditation. Anytime you sit down and are trying to focus, even if you're having a really difficult time focusing, you're meditating, right? The act, that's why I said during the meditation, the act of bringing your attention back is meditating. So even if your attention is all over the place, bringing it back is meditating. It is practicing, and it will get better. There are going to be times where it's flowing more natural. That's just how it is. That's how it is with everything. Like if you're a runner, right? Okay, you're a marathon runner. First of all, I don't know anything about this. I don't know why I'm using this as an example. I don't run ever. But if you're like a marathon runner, like you're not always going to PR, right? Sometimes you're going to be like, I'm not feeling so hot. For me, it'd be like on mile 2, I'd be like, I'm not feeling so hot. But you're still running. You're still training. You're still practicing. So just, be easy on yourself, which is part of mindfulness. Be kind to yourself. Like you're doing a great thing here. You're expanding your capacity to relax, to, think clearly, which in and of itself is a huge victory. So it's not going to always go great, but just go with it. Just do it. It's better to just do it. Any quick tips on how to step out of the moment when the guy in front of you takes the toilet paper? It's amazing how like toilet paper is like a huge commodity now, isn't it? One way to do it is to recognize that maybe the person that hoarding the toilet paper needs it more than you. Maybe they have irritable bowel syndrome. I don't know. Something like that. Breathing exercise helped me relax both my mind and body. I feel the tension melt away. That's great. Like that's what we're going for. And even if just a little bit, like if you can recognize even for a second, right, that you're feeling a little more relaxed, you did that on your own. You did that on your own without anything. Just thinking, using your mind. Like it was crazy. Really, really powerful. It's like we have an internal Google really to like investigate things. If we can like relax a little bit and do it. Pretty sure my breathing slowed down during the meditation. That was cool. Yeah. You will notice that. Like if you have a Fitbit, I don't have one on. I'm pointing at my wrist, but I do own one. It's like the Fitbit's always dying. I mean, it's constantly charging. It's upstairs charging. But if you have a Fitbit, sometimes it can be really interesting to look at your beats per minute when you're meditating, because it generally will drop. Everyone has different resting heart rates and this and that, and I am not an authority on this at all. But in general, you might recognize that your breathing will slow down a bit, which is good. That's good. It's like being like a swimmer, or like an athlete, you have a low resting heart rate or something like that. Ken, I'm glad you still feel relaxed, dude. Lori, what did I call? Oh, the second meditation, I call it the sky meditation. It's not a great name. It's just, like I don't have a really cool name for it, but I call it like the sky meditation, or like sky-like mind. I've heard. I think sky-like mind sounds like really weird, so I'm just gonna use sky meditation. But that's like a good one. Sometimes I'll even use that to just get started. Like it's really good to get in a groove. Like if we're gonna maybe like next time we might investigate anxiety, like where that comes from and like what the things that makes us anxious. But a good way to get in the groove is to like do our sky meditation, to get rid of the thoughts of the past and the future. It's like beam in on the present moment to clear the lake, clear the drops out. Let me know if anyone. Oh, Harmony. I think Harmony, you work for Fitbit, don't you? Look at that plug I just gave you. I'm sorry I said that the battery's always dying. It's not true. I didn't mean it. Please come back. I love the plug. Yeah. All right, let the company know. Let's partner. Yeah. So if you have any other questions, please email me. My email is in my email is on the website, and the website's in the description of the channel, which I probably should put the email there to make things simple. But please email me. I'll answer the questions. And thank you guys for coming and for participating with the questions. I think it's really important to ask questions because it shows us that we're all in this together. We're all figuring this out. A lot of us probably have the same questions, whether or not we're asking them or not. So that's really helpful, and it's really unique a part of live streaming. I think that lets us do this. Mike, yes, can we touch on anxiety next week? Yes, let's do that. So next week, let's focus on anxiety. We touched on it a little bit today. Anxiety is worrying about the outcomes of future events, right? So next week, we'll focus on anxiety, and I'll go through what we can do, the steps to try to help do that. We're going to do that. Recognize. I can't even remember it. We're going to recognize, reduce, remedy. That's it. I remembered it. I got to have better mindfulness to remember it. But we're gonna go through those steps because not only is that helpful with anxiety, but it's helpful with everything. Like it's the method of using meditation to help with all these things. But anxiety is huge for literally everyone. We're all anxious. Even if you think you're not, you are at some point. So let's focus on that next week. I think that's a really good suggestion. Thanks, Mike. We'll do that. That'll be cool. All right. So I've taken up a lot of your time. I know it's late on the East Coast and elsewhere. It's earlier here in Colorado. But thank you for coming. Thank you for being a part of this. Thanks for being open to trying meditation. I hope you found it helpful. And, just thank you, because without you guys, I wouldn't be able to do this and to share this with you guys. So I hope you did enjoy this. I hope you found it relaxing or helpful or intriguing or one of those things. And I hope to see you next week. All right. Thanks. Take care.